What's going on, golf fans? It's your boy Gsluke here with our round 4 prop and betting stream for the BMW Championship. Gonna get you guys ready for all of your Sunday exposure with a look at the averages for all 3 of these events. That's PGA, Live, and the DP World Tour. We're also going to talk weather, the Underdog and Prize Picks boards, any bets that you've got for me in the live chat, and some matchups on the sports books towards the end. So really everything you need for your process, and then anything on top of that you're curious about, just feel free to let me know in the chat. But today was a profitable day, 2 out of 3 so far this week. So I think we're at 5.5 units of profit so far. Let's see if we can add on that, maybe even get over that 10 plus unit of profit mark and end this week strong. So that'll be our goal here. Going to have some PGA and some live props that have already mixed in, that anything is live and anything is on the table for this live stream. We're going to start it off with a look at the BMW Championship, which played a lot harder today, which is exactly what we called for. We knew that the course was going to dry up. There were some hard pin locations that we pointed out yesterday, and every single category was affected. So the scoring average went from about a half a stroke under par to 0.76 over. Your birdie average dropped from over 3.5 per round to 3.28. Bogey average, talked about that going up rather drastically as well. It was only about 2.5 in round number 2, went up to 3.48 per round. So that's why it was such a big difference from round to round. Your fairway average did drop about 0.2 from round 2 to round 3. And your green average, which was about 11.8 after round number 2, dropped a whole 0.7 down to 11.12. So none of that was unexpected. It's why we're able to profit on a lot of our props today. And that combined with the live golf slate playing even easier than it did for round number 1 was really our recipe for success. And we're going to get to the live golf stuff here in a second, but you can see the scoring averages there. It played minus 2.45 for Thursday. It played minus 2.8 for round number 2, I should say, for Friday. Today was Saturday. They're 1 day behind of the live golf side of things. And the birdie average, which was already obscenely high for live heading into round number 2, was 5.44 per round. It went up from 5.06 to 5.44, which is the highest that we've really ever seen for one of these events. So a birdie fest of all the birdie fests over there, not quite that minus 12 from Sebastian Munoz, but he birdied his first 4 holes to start the day. So I think he was on some crazy streak of like 9 straight birdies. That's the kind of golf course that we have for Live Indy. And I guess now that we've gone through 2 of them, we'll throw out the DP World Tour averages. You can see those at the bottom right there. Stroke average was +1. It played to about a 72 at the par 71 setup. And the birdie average actually went down compared to the first couple of days. So I thought with the moving day setup, the better field, getting some of the lower tier guys out of there, that it might go up compared to rounds 1 and 2, but it was only 2.94 per round. So that Semi Valimaki prop that we took on that side, he did end up pushing for us, but course conditions were working against us there. So 2 of the 3 events worked out like we thought they would, not so much on the DP World Tour side, which honestly for Sunday, I'm probably just going to stay away from the DP World Tour. I've had 2 props that I've entered over there. I guess the Jesper one hooked today, but I've entered Sammy for the last 2 days for his over at 4 birdies, and he's pushed both times. Hasn't hurt us or anything, but I'm probably just going to stay away at this point. These other 2 events have been far more predictable for us over the first few rounds, and based on the current boards that we have, are also where I think a lot of the value is. Let's go through the weather at both of them. So Caves Valley first looks extremely calm, and this has been the case the entire week. So really the only variance that we've seen in the weather has been the fact that we've gotten storms, and that was on Thursday. But ever since then, it's been calm. It's also been sunny for all these different days. So for Sunday, expect the course to dry out even a little bit more, and there is a chance that they get some storms towards the very end of the day, but they're going to be finishing up play without, any sort of a playoff carrying things on about 5:30 to 6 at the latest. So they shouldn't be hit by any sort of storms, fingers crossed, knock on wood, that we don't get any sort of delay. But the course should continue to get more difficult as the week goes on, especially with these pin locations looking pretty tucked in. We are going to go through those real quickly here in a second, but I don't think they're as hard as they could be. Like there are some that are pretty dicey, like 3 is a hard one. 17 is just diabolical. 17 is the hardest pin I've seen for a long time. But there's also some that aren't so bad, we'd say, out of these pin locations. So in general, that's why I think conditions are going to stay about the same. Probably will play to about a half a stroke over par scoring average, I'd say, to maybe 1 stroke over par. Like there's a chance that these Sunday pins are harder than what I can tell ahead of time. There's also a chance that with the course drying out a little bit, that's going to play even harder than what it did for round 3. But something between plus 0.5 to plus 1 is personally what I'm calling for tomorrow. And then we'll also look at the live golf. So this is the Westfield, Indiana. So they actually moved up the tee times tomorrow to kind of account for this, but they're expected to get storms at some point. So they have it at 9:45 a.m., which means that they're teeing off pretty much right when that storm's supposed to get there. But if there's thunder involved in that, and it is a thunderstorm, that they're expecting to head through there, that would soften up the course. They would have to take them off of it and then go out back afterwards, right after the storm heads through. And there's not much wind expected for the first half of the day. And it could be even softer conditions than what we had for rounds 1 and 2. So I would say the weather forecast is probably about the same for Live, but I think there's a chance that if it rains, the course ends up soft. Maybe they even have to do lip clean in place. If it's a big storm that ends up heading through there, that it could actually even improve the scoring average that we've had for rounds 1 and 2. So I'm personally going to keep it about the same in that -2.5 to -2.8 range. But something else to consider with Live Golf is that there are still some outliers that are really throwing this off. Just like for the first rounds where 31 of the 54 players shot -3 or better, it was 30 of the 54 that shot -3 or better today. And in fact, if you take a look at the scores that were -4 or better on the Live Golf side, I think it was like 26 of the 54 players that did so. So just under half that were getting to -4. So just like we were using the median yesterday for Live, and that was a little bit more valuable, we'll probably want to do the same thing for the last round, because some of the guys shooting like +4, +5 are really skewing that scoring average and not giving us a true sense for what the rest of the field was doing out there, which was much closer to like a -3, maybe even a little bit better than a -3 scoring average, which will help us out with our analysis later. But the timing of the tee times, also that storm tomorrow morning, is, I guess, the one thing that we'll have to keep an eye on for the Live Golf, but should still be easy, should be a dart fest out there. It was already soft, so like I don't think the rain's going to have a big difference if it plays easier. If it does play a little bit easier, maybe the scoring average does get to -3 or better, but the field as an average was doing better than that anyway. So nothing that's really changing up how we're breaking down the slate. But I do want to take a look at these pin locations. So let's go to hole 1. Let's bring up the contours of these greens and show you guys what we're talking about. What's going on, Golf Kid? He said, chat, Scotty 9.5 fairways was 8 on your 10K UK streak. That stinks, man. Hopefully you can get another streak going. Thoughts on Hideki for a bounce back round? I think that Sundays are usually good for Hideki. So in DFS, I'm backing that, but I wouldn't do it in like a prop format. Like 50-50 wise, there's probably not that much a difference for him tomorrow. But Sunday Decky, him in his yellow shirt, as I say, is always a narrative that I'll back. In more of a volatile format. So like a round 4 leader, round 4 best score, DFS, where having the absolute nutted round actually matters, is the kind of place to take that at, though. And he said, also thoughts on Sanjay for the under 70.5. He's right there on the 30 mark. Yeah, man, those narratives don't mean much to me. And I know you've been around here for a while, Jack, so I'm not sure why you continue to ask me about the narratives. Where they're at in the FedEx Cup top 30 really doesn't mean much to me unless they've got no chance of making that top 30, because, just because you're on that line doesn't mean you're just magically going to play better. These guys want to make a check. They're paying to be at these golf courses, right? They're independent contractors. They're not getting their hotels and all those accommodations paid for. They have to do that all out of pocket themselves. They don't show up to a golf tournament and half-ass it, right? They're trying to win. They're trying to top 5 every single time. So I think those narratives are kind of just mumbo jumbo. They don't really mean that much to me. If you're just asking about the projection at 70.5, I've got the scoring average at half a stroke to a stroke over par, and he's an average player. So I personally don't think that's value for the under. I think if anything, it's about the right number. And yeah, that's always going to be my take on narratives, man, whether it's for DFS, prop wise, whatever. There are a few rare scenarios where it'll even come into my mind to think about something that's not stat based. But most of the time, it'll lead you astray. It's not usually the best stuff to incorporate. And it's usually people just make up narratives to support what they want to do, right? They've got something in the back of their mind that they want to play a prop. Maybe it's one of their favorite guys that they want to support. Their guts telling them that he's going to play well the next day. And then they'll just make something up to support that. That's just not really my kind of thing, if I'm being honest. Robbie Mack under 69.5 at +105. Yeah, with the lead, I hope he can shoot better than -1, but I don't think that's value or anything. Like the scoring average at probably half a stroke over. You did see today that the later guys had a much better go of it than some of the earlier starters. In fact, if we go back to the averages, it's a good thing I remembered this. The first half of players, so that's the way that they do it on Data Golf for a slate like this. It's not like there's waves for rounds 3 and 4 most of the time anyways, but the first half played to about a +2 scoring average. the second half of players played slightly under par. So, somebody like McIntyre, I guess, wouldn't be out of reason to be taking for an under because he's in first. He's obviously in those second half of tee times that were playing a lot better than the first few guys out. But even then, like, the plus money on it, I guess, makes it a little bit tempting to consider as a play, but I don't think that that's drastically off or anything. Yeah, I am looking at some overs, potentially some unders on birdies as well for some of those first few groups out. So just sit on tight, guys. We still have some pin locations to go through before we start going through pick'em props. But yeah, that's going to be the general sentiment for me tomorrow, man. It's fading some of those guys going off early that have nothing to play for and are playing like absolute shit this week. That's, I think, where the value is going to be for tomorrow. And what's going on, Hooves? Welcome to the live stream. Let me know if there's anything you want me to break down for tomorrow. Let's go through these pins. So I already went through them earlier, and I would say they're about the same as what they were today. Normally, round 4 is harder than round 3, but I don't necessarily think that's going to be the case here. The first pin location's in the back right, so it was back left today. Now it's on this back right side. This is an easier pin than round 3 because it's on the bigger side of the green. It is a longer shot in, so I don't think it's going to be like drastically different, but it's also at a low spot. You can see that you have this slope right here that'll help you funnel the ball a little bit closer. So I would say that this pin location is like, I don't know, a 5 out of 10. It was probably like a 7 out of 10 difficulty today. Next up, we have 2, which is on the middle left side of the screen. I would say it's a hair easier than today as well. Today, it was up on this back right shelf, which is probably the hardest pin that you get at that hole. Now it's tucked towards this hazard on the left. What's worth noting is that it was a harder shot because of the sloping at this, but this is going to be probably the second hardest pin, I would say, because the miss to the left of the screen is absolute death. You can see how steep it is right here and everything funnels off. So if you miss to the left of this pin by like 4 or 5 yards, it'll hit here and then bounce down into this natural area, which could be a penalty shot. I think it's a red area up there where you can take that lateral hazard, but it's going to lead to doubles and triple bogeys if you end up hitting it to the left of the screen. So it looks easier on paper. I thought it was going to be easier when we first got to this, but the scoring average, I actually think is going to be worse at hole number 2. The bogey percentage will probably stay about the same. It might actually go down ever so slightly, but the double bogey and triple bogey percentage is going to skyrocket at that hole. I mean, literally anything left is almost like an automatic double bogey. Next up, we have 3, which is in the back left. This is a harder pin than the last couple days. It's up on this top slope, and it's also a longer shot in there at hole number 3. Let's go to 4. So 4 is in the back left. This is a par 5, though, so it's not like it's going to be a hard hole. But if you guys were watching round 2, it was down about where my cursor is now. People were chipping it out of this bunker to about where my cursor is now. So like just past where this 4 is right here. And it was funneling down to this low spot. The problem is with this back left pin location, which is about where it's going to be for round 4, is that everything is sloping away from you. So if you hit a shot here and it happens to catch this slope, it's going to go like 15 to 20 feet away from this pin location. So this is the hardest pin that we have at hole 4, especially when it comes to making birdies. I think if you get it greenside into and you're chipping to it, that it's not like the hardest pin location that I've ever seen. Like you could probably pull it off, especially these tour players, but like a wedge shot into this thing, it's going to be almost impossible to get it back to that back left pin. Let's go to 5. So 5 would be a middle right pin location. This is the hardest pin that you have at this hole. It's about where my cursor is now, so just a little bit to the right of that too. And the reason why this is really hard is there's a slope going from the front of the green to the back of the green, just to the right of it. That means that anything that lands there is going to bounce back to that back little corner, potentially even go over the back. Then you have the sloping right here about 2 paces to the left of the pin location, which is going to take balls well to the left side. So if you pull it, by the way, let's say that you're a right-handed player and you pull your wedge shot here. Well, the pull takes you over the back of the screen, and then just like 2, where it like drops off the depth and natural area, it's the same exact thing. So this pin location, I know it doesn't look that bad, but it is by far the hardest that you have at 5. And today, by the way, they moved up the tee box. So if we go back to the tee, you can see they played it one up so that people could drive it. That is probably not going to be the case for Sunday. You know, just like I said for yesterday's live stream, like normally when they move up the tee one day, they move it back the next. That was what they did at 11, and they decided to move it up here at 5. So expected to be at the very back for Sunday. Next up, we've got 6, which is a middle left pin, which is a little easier than today, I'd say. Today it was on that back right shelf. It is at the biggest landing area of the screen, though. Now it's at the smallest landing area that you have on the green. And round number 2, they had it about where my cursor is now. Now it's more so towards the left side. I think, I guess I can't bring up the averages now. I don't have the data golf round by round stuff up, but I'm pretty sure this round 2 location, when it was here on this front right, was harder than what it was for the other 2 days. So though I kind of think it's not going to be that bad, it might actually be the hardest location there on that left side. Let's go to 7 next. So 7's the back left. This is for sure harder. It's a longer shot in. It's tucked over the bunker. So that one's going to ramp up the difficulty a little bit. Let's go to 8. So 8 is a middle left pin location. It's a longer shot in. I'm not sure if it's that much harder, though, just because it's a pretty wide, pretty big portion of the green back there. It is a longer shot in, though, so maybe slightly more difficult because you're hitting, a club with more variance, more side-to-side dispersion. Next up, we have 9, which is in the back middle. This one probably easier than today, I would say. Today it was up on a little bit of a high spot. You did have a slope just to the left of it that took balls away. Now it's on the little bit of a lower area, so I would say marginally easier than round 3. Next up, we've got 10. So starting on the back side would be a front pin location. It looks easier, but let's look at the slopes. Yeah, it'll be an easier pin location than today. Today it was up on a back little shelf, so it was pretty hard to hit it close there. Let's go to 11. So 11 is also a front pin. This looks like an easier pin, so down in the low area. And it probably will be an easier one. The one thing that you can't do that players were doing yesterday a bit is spin it off one of these slopes and into the water. So that'll be the challenge at 11. Next up, we have 12, which is a middle left pin. This one's tough because it's on the high spot. So just like we had at that other hole where everything was kind of run away from it, this is another one of those spots where it's the highest portion of the green, so it's going to be kind of difficult to get it up there. Next up, we have 13, long par 3. That's going to be on this front left, so it looks easier, right? You go to the 13 and go, oh, it's a big green. It's just on the front left. What's the big deal? Well, front left brings in all that water, so the scoring average there will probably go up because of some doubles and triples. Next up, we have 14, which is a middle left pin location. It's probably about the same as today, I would say. It is on a high area, though. You can see just past it, everything runs away. Just in front of it, it's a little bit of an upslope, too. So, yeah, that's a little harder than the low spot that it was in for round 3. Let's go to 15. 15's a middle right pin. This is a long par 4. Easier than today, though. Today, it was at the high spot. It's at, like, the middle tier now, so maybe marginally easier this time. Let's go to 16. That's a par 5 long hole, but it's on the middle left. This is harder than today, but it's still an easy hole, right? It's a par 5. It'd be one of the top 3 birdieable holes that we have on the course, but the pin location isn't quite as accessible as what it was for moving day. Let's go to 17. Oh, this is the fun one. This is the hardest pin that we've seen maybe all year. It's in the back right. It's close to the water, and here's the crazy part. It is 3 paces from the right edge. Normally, when you have like a 230, 240-yard par 3 like this, they put it like 5-6 paces from the side. They try and make it somewhat reasonable. It's right here. It's where my cursor is. It's 3 paces from the side, 240 yards, all carry over the water. So yeah, good luck making a par on that one. And then finally, 18 is on this front right, which actually isn't that bad. I thought for Sunday they might go to this back right pin location, but they went with the front right, which the only thing that is kind of hard here is that all this slope does take you down to the penalty area. So just like you had at 11, where it was an easier pin, but if you overspin it, you could be in a lot of trouble. I think that's the same thing that we're getting there at 18. So that's why I don't think the pin locations are that brutal. That's why I still have it in like the plus 0.5 to plus 1 range. That's why I don't have it from like 0.75 to plus 0.25. Plus 1.25, I should say, just because the pin locations aren't as brutal as they possibly could be. So still harder, should still be harder conditions than round 2. That was the outlier after all the rain they ended up getting. Round 4, they usually tighten the screws a little bit, and that is probably going to be the case there for the PGA side. So let's go through some exposure I've already entered. So it's going to be entering some PGA fades along with some live golf props. That's why we, took the time to really go through the live golf averages and the weather, because I think it's going to be a birdie fest over there, especially if they get a little bit of rain tomorrow. So by mixing in PGA and live, we can get full 3x payout on 2-mins without having to deal with the correlation rules. So let's start it off with, who's the first fade that we'll take? Let's go with the Thomas Dietrich under and birdie. So Thomas Dietrich, if we go to his average for birdies or better this year, is number 125 on tour. So that's well below average. In fact, that is, towards the bottom of the tour when it comes to birdie or better percentage. If you take a look at his results so far this week, they also haven't been great. Over his first 54 holes, he's lost 7.6 strokes tee to green. He's lost strokes off the tee, on approach, and with his around the green play. In fact, he's plus 12 to this point, right? He's only made 5 birdies over his first 3 rounds. So not only has he gone under this line for every single round so far, but it's been pretty emphatically under this sort of line. And if you take a look at Data Golf, which shows their chances of making the top 30, he has a 0.00% chance of making it to East Lake. So quite literally, really nothing to play for. It's not like he's going to move that much up the leaderboard, even with a good round. So there are some guys tomorrow, and it's not going to happen with everyone. Not every single player is just going to give up. Some of them have some pride in what they're doing, right? And they will fight through it in respect to those kind of players. But there are also a lot of players in this situation, and we're not exactly going to know this ahead of time. This is why, it's not really the main reason why I'm playing this, but it's a narrative, and it's like the cherry on top. When we had the question before about like Sungjae and his under on strokes, and the narrative is the first thing that we brought up. I don't like that one so much, but when it's like the third or fourth thing that we're incorporating, again, the icing on top, cherry on top, whatever you want to say for it, that's when I think it's a little bit more helpful. And that's what we've got here with Dietrich, is right, that he's already a below average birdie maker. He's going off early. He's out of form already this week, and he might not give a shit tomorrow. So why not go ahead and fade him that direction? And I do have to say that the narrative of them not caring, it feels a little bit more for sure than the guys that are on that marker, because when you're on that marker close to that top 30, I mean, it might help a few guys lock in, that Mamba mentality, go out there and figure it out. But it's also going to hurt some guys that are in that scenario. Your Tommy Fleetwoods, the weak mental players that you see it every year at Q School, by the way. Q School is where you can earn your tour card. It's that event where I think it's the top 3 automatically earn their tour card. But like based on your ranking, like top 25 get conditional status and all of that. You see so much choking on the cut line day at Q School and for Sunday at Q School that anyone that is like on the fence about whether pressure is a legit thing on the PGA Tour, just watch Q School one time and that'll be completely set in your mind. You'll know that it's a thing after watching one of those rounds, whether it's round 2 or 4 for Q School. It is you can see it on the players. I mean, they televise round 4 for Q School, especially. You can see players literally trembling as they're hitting some of their putts. Not the case, right? When you're like out of it, like if you're just out of it, kind of hitting the ball around, like that is for sure going to be a bad thing. When you're in that pressure cooker on like a Sunday, right? You've got your Tiger Woods that play better in that scenario. You've got your Tommy Fleetwoods that choke it all away. Cam Young before he won, right? That really choke it all away on Sundays almost every single time. You have to look at it on a player-by-player basis, in my opinion. So that's going to be the under that we take for PGA. And just to show you the average, right, it was 3.28. Birdies are better per round today. He's already below average. We've got pins that look just as hard once again. His form is some of the worst. Just does not make sense to me for why he'd be at 3.5 over that field average. So for me, a no-brainer, something that I'm going to take a stance against. And then for the Live Golf side, there's really a bunch of different ways we could go with this. I've already entered a few, but maybe my favorite so far would be this Bubba Watson under on strokes, who if you take a look at the Live Golf Tour, let me actually bring up Data Golf real quick, guys. One thing that Data Golf allows us to do that I really like is that you can do like custom searches to figure out the shots gained for these Live guys. So for example, if we go to interactives, query tool, click Live Golf Indianapolis in the last 20 rounds, that's what I've been using for a lot of this. You'll see that Bubba Watson is gaining 0.88 shots gained per round on the Live Tour. So he's a well above average player. And then when we take a look at the results from today, when it was over half the field shot -3 or better, nearly half the field shot -4 or better on the Live Golf side, I'll take him to shoot -3 all day. He's been a well above average player over there. Even if we just take a look at his finishes, I mean, look at this lately, 17th, 2nd, 23rd, which is whatever on Live. Same thing with T37. That's actually a little bit below average. But T4, T17, T7, T14, and that was at the Masters where he had that T14. He's been a legitimately good player for the last few months over there. So for him to be at worse than the field average is, I think, a little bit of a mistake. So that's a 3x slip if you mix those two together. And we're actually going to go with the second slip here for the live stream because I've already entered a bunch at this point. And we'll go with Sam Stevens under 3.5. So he's somebody that can't make it to the top 30 either. I think on Data Golf, they had him at like less than 0.1% chance. So technically, like there's at least a higher than 0.00% chance that he makes it, but extremely low. He'd have to have like a 59 to make it, I think. So we'll go with the under and Sam Stevens. By the way, for the averages, he's number 122 at birdie or better percentage, which is well below the average in that category. And if we take a look at the stats for this week, Sam Stevens, if I could type his name correctly, we can bring it up. He's lost 6.7 strokes to the field with his tee to green play. So he's been almost just as terrible as Thomas Dietrich has. And at that 3.5 mark, how the hell is he going to be over that average from today, right? The pins, if anything, are the same, if not a little harder in some cases for round number 4. And he doesn't have that same narrative going on as some of the other players do. Like, he doesn't have an actual tangible chance to make it to Eastlake the next week. So why would he care as much as a lot of the other players? So I guess that's the idea with that one. And then another live golf prop that we can mix in is we'll go with the Patrick Reed under on strokes. Patrick Reed, if we go back to this list over here, he's gaining a stroke per round on the live tour. And he's been more consistent for the year. It hasn't even just been the last 20 rounds. You can see, especially earlier this year, I mean, he was killing it over there, gaining like 2 strokes per round on live. But even since then has been one of the best players in the entire league. So at 67.5, you'd say, oh, shooting -4 is not easy, right? Like, oh, like why are you acting like that's like not a big deal for him to do? Because it's not. Almost half the field shot -4 today. Tomorrow they're going off earlier, which could be with softer conditions. And he's a well above average player, right? If almost half the field was getting to -4, Patrick Reed should probably be at 66.5 strokes. In fact, these guys like Bryson Joaquin that average like 1.5 to 2.5 shots gained per round on the live tour should probably be at like 65.5 strokes, 66 strokes. So I'm trying to choose some of these guys that just have to have like average days to cover, but there would also be potential undervalue on those guys towards the top. So I think that's the way to approach this slate. On the DP World Tour side, so just to go back to that, the board is priced the same, and the weather, if you look at the Euro Tour stuff, is they're calling for pretty much the same exact weather forecast as the last few days. I'm just not sure there's a whole bunch of value here. Like, Valimaki's still at 4. I guess we could go back to that one. He had a solid round, but only got to 4 birdies or better. It feels like at some point he's probably going to get a hot putter and end up going over that for us. But the rest of the board is pretty adequately priced. So, like, I was considering mixing this in, and I might end up doing it at some point this evening before I call it for the night and figure out what we're going to enter. But outside of that, probably staying away from that. The course is pretty difficult over there. There are some drivable par 4s, though, which is why I was looking at some overs on birdies. But yeah, nothing that's as much of value as like the live golf stuff. I mean, that course is just super, super easy. It's wide open off the tee, the flattest greens that we've seen over there all year. That was pretty much a no-brainer for me. And then this PGA, the fades over here as well. I mean, you could tell based on, kind of the shit talk and I'm giving these players is like, how the hell are they projected over that field average? And that's the truth of it, right? There's absolutely no reason a lot of this players should be at that sort of number. So those would be the pick'em slips that we're going with for round number 4. I will be entering quite a bit more myself, and I already have, I think, 1 or 2 other slips I've already entered at this point. So make sure to check out my Patreon page for that. There's a link in the description of the video to go out there and join it. It'll be the prop tier you guys want to join if you guys want to get access to all of those slips. It's for Live, PGA, DP World Tour. I post everything over there. And includes these averages as soon as they drop for these events. Also weather reports for them as well. I'll give you guys the scoop from that angle, as well as every single slip as I enter them with the reasoning behind it as well, right? I don't just post slips and then expect people to tail them blindly. I give everything that I'm looking at on these props to give you guys all the reasoning why I think that they're value, to not only let you decide for yourself whether you want to tail them, right? I give you guys lowdown on it and the exact kind of value that's there, but also so that I can teach you what to look for in your own props, right? Teach you how to fish, teach you how to hunt, whatever way you want to use to describe that. I'm somebody that is not just about handing out one set of picks and then, having people continuously sign up for them over time. I would rather give people their own process to find their props and their own value so that they can do that themselves, not have to be, reliant on a pick site or, a place to go out there and just give them the bets for any single day. I'd rather people be able to go onto the board, find value for themselves and not have to pay for all those subscriptions for their entire life. So that's what it's meant for. If you want to be a better of golf, not be reliant on people for all of your picks and not make them yourself, then join the Patreon page. Those are the kind of people that we want over there. And if you do just want to tail my exposure, you can join it for that as well. There are a lot of people that do it for that purpose. I don't love that. I do have to say, I much prefer the people that are there for the more of the process-based reason. But there's a reason why I'm limited to $5 on all these pick'em sites. Let's just put it that way. We have quite the track record when it comes to hitting on these sort of props. So if you guys want to tail and join the train over there, you guys know how to do so. Again, link in the description, prop tier to give you guys all of that. But that's all we've got from the pick'em side of things. So I'm going to go through any questions that you guys have in the chat. That can be for Prize Picks or Underdog for PGA, any of those other golf tournaments. And then we're going to do a full deep dive on the matchup side of things. So if you guys are here for the sports books, 2 balls, 3 balls for any of these golf tournaments, we are going to go through that. But just give me a minute to go through any questions we've got in the chat first. Let's see, where did we leave off? What's going on, Sava? He said, you thought Sibu was going to snap his club at one point. I'm glad that he got angry because he had the lead on Benny G for a while. So glad that we got in his head and were able to cash that on him. That was a nice little minus 130 we got. He said, thoughts on the Spawn versus Cantlay matchup? You said with Cantlay at minus 115 and Spawn minus 105. So yeah, I mean, I would lean towards Cantlay on that. The shots gained, I believe, is pretty close between those two, but Cantlay plays in the higher tier fields, whereas JJ Spawn is playing at some of the Rocket Classics, the mid-tier field events a little bit more often. So let me just confirm that actually. So 1 second, we'll go to the matchup tool, and I'm going to go to the last 24 rounds, which is usually our go-to on this. So let's go Spawn and then Cantlay. So let's see. So I don't want live. I want it for the last 24 rounds. So let's get it to load in correctly here. So last 24 rounds, Spawn actually leads him by 0.75 strokes. That's a bigger discrepancy than I thought we were going to see. Let's go to the last 12, and I want to look at the last 36 rounds too. So let's go last 12 first. Last 12, it's a pretty big discrepancy. Let's go last 48 actually. Let's really zoom out on this, and still JG Spawn's the favorite. I was going to say if they were pretty close in shots gained within 0.25 strokes, that the field strength probably makes up for that, and I would take Cantlay. But now seeing that even over the last 48 rounds, it's still a pretty sizable difference. I kind of think the JJ Spawn side might be the value on that. Now, I'm not sure I would bet it because Cantlay, it's just I think he's the better player between the two, and maybe it's long-term bias because he's got the more wins. He's the more established player over the last 5 years. But the recent metrics are definitely favoring the JJ side of that. So it's a stay away from me. I thought we were going to like Cantlay there. The metrics are actually backing up Spawn. But I think that's a good one that the books put together, right? When you have those things kind of colliding against each other, those are pretty good 50-50 props for a prop to actually go out there and be posted for. Xander for less than 4 birdies. Don't know if I'd be fading Xander. It feels like there's other guys at 4 that you could fade that might be better to pick on. Worth noting, though, that Xander's played pretty horseshit this week. So that narrative of somebody that can't make the top 30, you could use that against Xander Schauffele. But he is a top 3 player in the world. And at least to my knowledge, yeah, there's better guys you could fade at 4 further down the board. I'd rather fade a Morikawa personally. Maybe even a Cantlay at 4. A Cam Young at 4 I'd rather fade rather than Xander Schauffele, just because Xander is the same, if not a better player than those sort of guys. And yeah, I guess that's the main reason for it. I mean, he's number 3 player in the world. So I feel like if you're going to fade somebody at 4, do it with somebody that's not one of the best guys in the field. What's going on, Ryan? He said, what's up? He said, watch my videos every tournament. Hey, glad to hear that. One of the sweaty tryhards then. He said, what do I think about Campbell over 71.5 and Vic under 69.5? So the Campbell 71.5, I at least have considered it. I chose to do fades for birdies instead, just because it feels like you're asking for a little bit less to happen. Campbell, by the way, is at 2.5 for birdies on a lot of the sports books. They don't think he's going to have a very good day. But if he's at 2.5 birdies and to go, +2 or worse, that's what he's got to do to go over 71.5. That means he's got to make 4.5 or 5 birdies to go over that sort of number. So I would personally rather go to some of these guys at 70.5 instead, because they also kind of suck. Campbell might be the worst player in the field, but these guys down here are pretty close to it in most cases. But yeah, man, I would be leaning on the over at the very least. He's not somebody I'd be looking to take a positive stance play on. I don't know how he won twice this year. It's still the biggest aberration that we have on the entire schedule. And then the other one you were looking at is Hovland under 69.5. I don't know if I'm as big on that one though, just because I think the course is going to play hard again, probably half a stroke to a stroke over par. That means to shoot -1 and cover that, he's going to have to gain a stroke and a half to 2 strokes to the field, which normally wouldn't be that big a deal. Like I'd be okay with that at the Rocket Classic or the Valspar Championship where Hovland won this year, but not so much in a field like this. This is the top 49 players on the PGA Tour. To gain a stroke to the field in this kind of field is asking a whole lot more than what it is at, like, let's say the Rocket Classic. So I'm personally not really big on the positive stance plays. I'm not against it with some of like your elite tier players. I know somebody asked about like Bobby Mack before. He was like plus 105 for the under. I think in certain players, you're going to get away with it because you are going to have people that break par tomorrow. But in terms of like what is value, what's going to happen more than 50% of the time, I'm not sure that unders is really the play because it's Sunday pins, hard golf course, played over par for 2 of the first 3 rounds. And that's with one of the best fields that we have in all of golf. So that's why I'm a little hesitant on those ones. And it's not just on Victor. It's really anyone for the under. Like anyone at 69.5 that's not Scotty Scheffler. Like if you told me that, sure, I could take Scotty to shoot -1, like I would do that. Anyone else, like even Rory, and Rory's at 68.5, by the way. He's a stroke lower than that. Even at 69.5, I wouldn't be like running to play that for the under. Like it would at least be a thought for me on whether he could get to that or not. What's going on, Antonio? Said thoughts on Henley for the under 69.5. Great little segue there. Like he's not a Scotty or a Rory for me. So yeah, I think that it's probably a pretty good 50-50 there. And I'm looking at fades mostly, not really this positive stance plays. And you're looking at Cam Young for the over on 4 birdies. Yeah, I'd stay away from that. Average was only 3.28 per round today. So to get to 5 birdies and cover that, you're gaining 1.6, 1.7 birdies to the field. Like if this was the Rocket Classic, I could see that for somebody like Cam Young, but not so much when it's an elite level field like this. So I'm not as bullish on those sort of plays as other people are. What's going on, Who's? You said you love Russ. Me too. He really fits this golf course well. So I do like him in DFS. I'll be playing him in that format. I'm looking at Rory for the under at 4.5. See, like now that's something I could get behind. Rory's maybe not my favorite player to fade because it's Rory McIlroy, but he's also at 4.5 now. Let me look at his DraftKings odds because I'm kind of curious where they have him at. I'm assuming juiced under just based on like where I would price him. So he's minus 125 in that direction. I'm okay with that. I wouldn't say it's my favorite play. If anyone's going to go batshit nuclear tomorrow, it probably is a Rory McIlroy. But in general, I would project him for under that. He said, how about Berger over 70? Yeah, fades in general, you're not going to get really any pushback from me on because I think the board in general is priced too positively. Daniel Berger is one of my favorite players, so I don't know if I would pick on him personally, but projection-wise, he's an average player in this kind of field. So if I have the average at like 70.5 to 71 strokes, then he would definitely be value towards the over. So I don't like that you're picking on my guy D-Bergs, but you're right. There's value on that one for sure. Probably not going to play it because I like him so much, but there's value on that one for sure. Like he should be at least at 70.5 strokes. He said, thoughts on fading Bobby Mack at 9 fairways? So yeah, average went down to about 8.5. So it went down about 0.2 from round 2 to round 3. At 9, that's about like 0.5 to 0.6 over the projected average. He is an above average fairway percentage player. So just to show you guys that, let's go to off the tee. Let's bring up driving accuracy and find McIntyre. He's number 63 on tour, so a little bit above that average. So I think 9 is probably a pretty good spot to have his projection. But what you would be fading if you took his under would be some pressure, right? Him being the 54-hole leader, having Scotty Scheffler breathing down his neck. Some people crumble under that pressure, and that's why the sports books usually project those guys a little bit worse in that scenario. Some people stand up to it, and I'm personally going to be hoping that he stands up to it because I bet him outright. It's a core play for me. If he wins, that would be pretty epic heading into Eastlake next week. But I couldn't completely fault you for fading a guy in that scenario. Like that's like a well-known narrative in this golf community is that people kind of crumble in that scenario, but I'll kind of be hoping that he doesn't. I'll be honest about it. I hope he can keep it together for my outright bet. He said that he had a hand injury, that he was struggling with closing his fingers. That's Berger. That's good information, by the way. I was napping this afternoon. I had a long night, so I needed to make up for it today. But yeah, if he has an injury going on, then yes, I think that we should be fading that. In fact, I'm gonna DM you after we get off of here so that so I can find exactly where that happened. But if that's the case, and I'll credit you on this, Blake, we're gonna use that as a play after. But I do want to. I'll DM you. I'll ask you when that happened. Thoughts on fading Bobby Max? So yeah, I gave you my thoughts on that one. I thought that made some sense. Let's see, that was my bad, by the way. I know you didn't put twice. Thoughts on Scotty, 66.5, minus 140 under. Minus 140 under. That feels aggressive. Is that really where DraftKings has him? Because if so, that's very aggressive. I guess it's Sunday Scotty, and they think he's going to go off. And yeah, he's at 67.5 and he's minus 140 under. So that might have been a typo from you. 66.5 and he would have been juiced under would have been just mind boggling to me. 67.5, I think makes a little bit more sense. Is it calling for another less than 10.5 fairways? Yeah, if you played that today, I'm not sure where he ended up. I'm assuming he went under based on the way that you worded that comment. Let's see where he's at least odds wise. So he's at that same number and minus 175 under. Yeah, that's a lot of juice to eat, but yeah, he probably is going to go under. I would agree with you on that one. He said, bet bad. He said, sorry, one more question. Hey, questions you're good on. You no need to apologize. He said, what about guys like Vegas and Dietrich for the over on strokes? Yeah, so we faded them for birdies, but strokes-wise, they're fadeable as well. Stevens, for example, he actually doesn't have a strokes line posted, but I kind of wanted to fade him for the over at 70.5. But yeah, these guys going off early that have been terrible tee to green, that don't have that top 30 aspiration, are for sure fadeable. So I could see that. And then the last one you said was Scotty over on birdies. Let me look at his line on DraftKings. And by the way, what site are you taking these on? Let me know, because that kind of leans into it as well, because I need to know what kind of payout you're getting. Wrong category. I feel like a doofus right now. If I could click on birdies it better, that would help. He's minus 150 over. Where are we getting Scotty at 4.5? It's kind of tempting. Is it Prize Picks? No, he's not there. I'm assuming Underdog, and he probably has a multiplier. Yeah, this 0.86x. He should probably be juiced over. I agree with that. That minus 150, if that was going to be available at 4.5, I was going to play it at even money. But with a multiplier towards the over, that sounds about right, I would say. He said, yeah, overstrokes definitely the play. That's what I'm thinking, man. And especially for the players that suck. Like, let me actually bring up Data Golf real quick. Or do I have a Data Golf tab up? Yeah, we do. Look at this, guys. This is a part of the reason why, like, the guys that are going up early are, I think, the ones to pick on. If we sort it today, the weather was the exact same. So if we take a look at the observed weather, if anything, the wind gusts and sustained winds were a little bit higher in the afternoon. The difference is a whole 2-shot difference. Played 1.87 for the first half of tee times. The second half played slightly under par. So that's why I don't think it's like out of reason, by the way, for these guys at 69.5 to, like, some of them are going to go under, right? Like, especially the guys going off late that are actually playing well, like a Hovland, McIntyre, right? Some of them are going to go under. But the best value are these early guys that just absolutely sucked it up today. I mean, it looked like they didn't even know how to play golf, and it's because they don't care, right? Like, there's a lot of truth to that if there's a whole 2-stroke difference with the completely flat weather there. So yeah, that's the value, man. And I think over on strokes could be a really good way to attack that. He said on Prize Picks, he said, I know that I like the under for matchups at times. What do I think about JT versus Vegas? Yeah, it depends on how close their birdie percentages are. Sometimes there can be some value there. JT is the number 1 birdie maker on tour, so that's probably not one I'd be taking for the under. But let me look at a couple of the others. I didn't see these matchups earlier, so this is the first time that I'm really getting to see them. Yeah, they all kind of look like they suck, to be honest. But I'll do my due diligence just in case. Yeah, nothing I see there from the matchup side. Said sup with the decky. I'm playing him tomorrow. He played horrendously today. He made like 8 or 9 bogeys, right? Actually took his over on 2.5 bogeys, and he went over on like his first 3 holes or something. Something was up, but tomorrow could be a good bounce back spot for him. I'm using him in DFS. He said, heard on the fades tomorrow could be Corey Connors for the under on 9.5 fairways. I butchered that. But yeah, Coco for the under 9.5. By fades, I don't really mean fairway fades. So, like, we're mostly talking about like pin locations and stuff, right? We're talking about bogeys, the amount of birdies that you're going to be posting. fairways aren't really the same sort of scenario. Like that's why a lot of times when I'm trying to fix the payout on a slip that I'm entering, I'll go to the fairway board because it's not really the same thing as these other categories where it's correlated to the conditions at hand. So yeah, I like the fades, but not so much really for fairways. Like there could be over or under value that makes sense for that category. You're looking at pick 6. Okay. And yeah, I didn't know that they had multiplier boosts on there now. That's interesting. You said Chris Goddard for the over on 70 strokes. That could be one as well. I think Daniel Berger, I like a little bit more. If what Blake was saying about the fingers going on, you give a narrative and somebody at 70 strokes, and that's probably an even better spot. Yeah, I got what you were saying, by the way, Ryan. They have multipliers on that site now, which means they can post a little bit more in terms of selection, which is probably a good step for them heading forward. You said you wonder if Hideki over 0.5 matchups for Hoagie could be a play. Yeah, if I think he can bounce back, and he's going against Hoagie, who's kind of out of it with the top 30 at this point. Yeah, I'm not going to play it because of that 0.5. You guys know just how much I hate that when it comes to playing these bigger, better matchups. But yeah, if you were going to play an over, you'd want to find one of those like really shitty players that's going off early versus somebody that's more in it, like to try and make the top 30 and a big enough talent discrepancy in the terms of their birdie or better percentage to warrant taking it with the 0.5, which is a lot to find. So that's personally why it's not my favorite category to go through, but it's doable. It's not impossible to find that kind of thing. You're thinking about taking Sam Burns for the over on birdies versus Bridgman. Yeah, I don't really know what to say there. I don't like those matchups. If you guys can't tell, I think that they're toss-ups at the very best, and oftentimes they're sucker bets on those sort of things. Let's go through some 2 balls for tomorrow. So we're going to focus on the sportsbook side now, move on from the pick'em side of things. The rest of my pick'em exposure and analysis you guys can find on my Patreon page. Again, link down below if you guys want to join that prop tier to get all of that stuff. But let's find at least one matchup to play. And we're looking for talent discrepancies at close to even money odds. Those are normally what I find the most success with when it comes to finding these 2 balls. So, for example, I'm kind of tempted by this Goddard versus Stevens one. I know that Goddard's going to be the better form player, but I'm wondering by just how much over Sam Stevens. So let's see. We're going to go to the last 24 rounds. We're not going to do last 48 here. Let's do last 24. I'm not sure if it did that or not. Let's see. So there's the last 24. He's 1.6 shots gained better per round. Yeah, I'd say that that's a pretty big gap. So that's one that we'll throw into our shopping cart. I'll even play it at the minus 135. I would say that it should probably be juiced even more than that if it's over a stroke difference between the two. McCarthy is the favorite versus Glover. Those shots gained probably aren't too far off. Go Lowry versus Hoagie. Yeah, no thank you. Sibu versus Poston. Now, Sibu's probably better, but I doubt it's by very much. Let's just double check it. Let's not guess. And if you're wondering why I'm not looking at the stats for this week, it's because I've come to realize that looking at like 2 or 3 round sample sizes is completely foolish. And that if you're going to be breaking down matchups, you need to be looking at overall talent level, overall playing ability, not how they're playing over the last day or so. Last day or so, I've just come to find is almost just mumbo jumbo when you're trying to break down these players. It's why we're using year-long stats where we're breaking down these props. We're not looking at so much what they've done this week. Like we've referenced what they've done this week, right? That's why we have these shots gained metrics up, but it's been like the number 2 or maybe even the number 3 thing that we're looking at on these. But yeah, those two were pretty close. If you go back to it, they were only off by like 0.2 strokes per round. So that one should probably be where it is. There's Cantlay that spawned. We were asked about that one a little bit earlier. That one's probably about right. That's, I think, an intriguing matchup. It's a good 50-50 that they've set up there. Fitz versus Taylor. Now, that could be one where we get some discrepancy here. So let's look at Fitzpatrick, who's been playing really, really well, versus Nick Taylor, who has kind of just been a guy recently. And I know Fitzy fell off the last week or so, but even then, he's over a stroke better per round. And he's only minus 140 for his side. That could be one to consider. Let's keep going through these. Hideki versus Ashtray. Yeah, no thank you. Kitayama versus Pendrith. That could be another one here now. Kitayama has been playing some damn good golf. So for him to only be the slate favorite feels a little bit disingenuous, but let's see. So put those two up over the last 24 rounds. Yeah, he's 1.22 strokes gained better per round. So that's one that I'd probably play at that sort of number. Let's go Benny G versus Day. That feels like another one right there, huh? Let's double check on it. So Ben Griffin. Let's go Jason Day. I'm assuming it's at least a stroke difference. Yeah, 1.3 stroke difference. All right. Let's throw that one in the shopping cart too. Henley versus Connors. Now, Henley's going to be better, but Connors is returning from injury. So this one might not be as straightforward, but let's see. See what it looks like over the last 24 regardless. So yeah, Henley a little bit better, but I think the injury narrative kind of makes up for that one. Got Young versus English. Young's got to be a lot better than English, no? At least that's what my intuition tells me, but let's see if that's backed up with the stats. So last 24 rounds, it's actually only a half a stroke difference between those two. So yeah, not nearly as drastic as some of the other ones that we've seen. Ricky's been pretty damn good, so I'm not going to fade him. Hall versus McNeely. Hull should probably be the favorite between those two. I do have to say I have a soft spot for McNeely at this course, though. I mean, I bet him outright, so that should tell you a little something there. But it's only a half a stroke difference there, too. So, yeah, we're going to stick to these ones that were like over a stroke gain difference just because, I mean, we can be as picky as we need to be here. You don't need to be entering the whole board for 2 balls or anything like that. Aubert Burns, that seems pretty right. And then, yeah, this last one, McIntyre Scotty, we're going to stay away from that. I think we're going to go with these 4 2 balls. Now, I have to enter them a Hard Rock Bet. I can't enter them on DraftKings like you guys see here, but Hard Rock Bet has been posting pretty much the same exact odds as a lot of these other books, so I should be able to tail these 4 myself. But as long as I'm getting the same, if not slightly better odds on all 4 of these, then I'm going to be entering them myself. So on top of just the regular pick'em stuff that we do here in the live stream, I do post everything I add on top of it on my Patreon page as well. So on top of the price picks and underdog stuff that we've talked about before, make sure to check out the Patreon page for all of those. But that's all, guys. Best of luck with everything that you guys are going with for round number 4. I've got some UFC to sweat out. I had some lineups that were in pretty decent position before we got on the live stream here. So hopefully they're still in good standing after this live stream and the couple fights that have already gone on. But I hope to see us cashing out on a lot of these slips, a lot of the exposure that we've already gone through. If you guys want to tail everything else that I'm entering, the Patreon page is the place to be. And I'll see you guys for all the content next week at East Lake.